Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name is Christina and I currently live and work in Santiago, Dominican Republic. Today's video is going to actually be a two-part video. I'm going to be talking about my experience with the healthcare system here in the Dominican Republic. And in the second video, I'm going to kind of compare the healthcare system between here and the US. So the first part of this video, I'm just going to kind of be chatting about my experience that I've just had. I have been very sick for the past 2 weeks. It's not COVID, so it's all good. But it started actually back in November, so I'm just going to kind of talk about the process that I've gone through with doctors here, and then this past week having to go see a specialist. So basically, I moved here in like September, and by November, I kept getting really, really bad sore throats. The school has a doctor, not a nurse, a school doctor. So they're like, why don't you just go see her because it'll be easier for you. You won't have to like go to a clinic and get your insurance run and all this stuff. So I went to see her, looked at my throat. Turns out I had tonsil stones. And if you don't know what tonsil stones are, it's basically calcified blobs in your tonsils. A lot of the time, if food gets like lodged in there, they can get it's gross. I'll leave it at that. So it's not fun and it gets really, really, really painful basically. So went to the doctor at the school. She was like, looked at my throat, was like, bruh, this is what you have. Gave me antibiotics to help with the inflammation and the infection. And I think I worked at home for like 2 days. I had to like gargle with this stuff and I had like a throat spray. And it went away and I was fine. So that was my first interaction with the doctor this time in the DR. I went home for Christmas, and during Christmas break, I ended up getting tonsil stones again. And so I had to go to a clinic in the US, so this obviously isn't really relevant to the DR part of this health story. But the difference between here in the US, I had to go to a clinic there, and as most people know, if you're from the US, you have to like make an appointment, go wait to get in, see the doctor, all that. So this one was a little bit more thorough. They did a strep throat test. I came back negative, which was great, and then he finally was like, you might just have allergies, and he wasn't going to give me anything. So I was like, no, like this has happened before. So he gave me an antibiotic, and I went on my way again, and I got better within like 5 days. Fast forward to about 2.5 weeks ago, I started getting the same sore throat, so I was like, great, it's happening again. And then it got worse than it was the first time, and I started getting a fever and like body aches. And so obviously everyone's freaking out because it sounds like COVID. But so we talked to HR, is like who helps me with anything that I'm confused about, so like healthcare basically. So HR was like, no, just go talk to our doctor first and we'll see what she says. The doctor was like, I don't think it's COVID because this keeps happening to you. If it gets worse, we're going to get you tested. But she also said, I want you to go see a specialist because this is like out of my range of expertise at this point. By this point, it was Monday of last week. HR contacted 2 specialists to find out if they took my insurance, both of which did. One of them, I was able to get an appointment with if I wanted, but it was 3 times the price as the other one. The other one, you can't have an appointment. You literally go, you take a number, and you wait. Which I'll talk about a little bit more in my next video. But so it's literally like in the US when you get your like driver's license, you go in, you take a number, and you just wait. But here in the DR, everything takes longer, so you wait a very long time. After talking to HR for a really long time about which one I should do, I decided to go for the cheaper one because I didn't know like how much, if they were gonna do testing or what that was gonna end up costing. So I go to the specialist, and she is in a huge hospital called Holmes, but it's not just like a hospital, they have like offices as well. So she was a ears, nose, and throat doctor, but a specialist. I cannot pronounce the proper term for this, I'm just gonna say that. So this is on a Tuesday. I luckily got a number and I left because the receptionist said you can leave and come back. Some of these clinics you're not allowed to leave or you'll lose your spot. Luckily, I was able to leave and come back. It took me, I think I was number 14 and I got the number at like 10 a.m. Took about until 2:30 for it to be my turn. So called back like every 2 hours. I went back to the clinic. I waited another like 20 minutes. They finally let me in. She had like a little consultation room basically. So she like checked my throat, asked me like a little bit about my medical history, all that stuff. And basically very clearly was like, well, yeah, you have an infection because your throat's inflamed and all this stuff. So she gave me an antibiotic and an anti-inflammatory, and then ordered 4 different lab tests that I had to do. I'll talk a little bit more about this in the second video, but here you don't have to do the labs at the office that you saw the doctor, if that makes sense. So I went home that day because it was already late and I was sick and I felt tired. So I went home, I got the medication from the pharmacy first, which you also can go to any pharmacy, so I just went to a random pharmacy that was next to the hospital essentially. And on Wednesday of last week, so the day after I saw the doctor, I went to a lab, and the lab is very similar to the clinic. So you go in, you take a number, and you wait. This one was recommended to me by HR, and there was less people than at the clinic, so I got in quicker, but I think I still waited about 45 minutes for my turn. You go up to this front desk, you give them the script to get the test done, I guess, and they have to have proof of why you need it for your insurance. So I had to tell them, I keep getting tonsillitis or whatever. They talk to your insurance to see if it'll be covered, and then for me too, the tests weren't covered, so I just had to pay it. And you pay, and then they take you back to the room. They did a throat swab because they were doing strep throat test on me, and then I had blood drawn as well. So the typical, what they do in the US if you're going to a lab as well. That was kind of the experience with that. After that happened, my results came back the day after, at which point I was still waiting for one of the results. So I didn't go back to the doctor. This was Thursday. I didn't go on Thursday. But my symptoms got way, way worse. The doctor at the school was like, you need to go tomorrow because you need to figure out if you need to get tested for COVID. Went back on Friday with the results that I had, even though I was still missing one. The doctor, again, you had to take a number and wait. So I waited. This time they're like, come back at 1. That's probably when you'll get in. So I had an appointment, but not really. So I went back at 1, and I waited another hour to get in. I saw the doctor, she looked through my results. Turns out I had strep throat, which was super fun, not at all. And was talking about why it kept recurring and all this stuff. So then she gave me another thing that I needed to get, a shot that I needed to buy basically. Told me I couldn't work for a week, so she gave me a doctor's note to basically give to my school, my employer, and say I'm not allowed to work for a week. So I've been at home resting, which has been great because I've been very sick. And that was basically it. As far as cost goes, I do have insurance. My insurance is kind of basic. So if you have a better insurance, I don't know if you get more coverage or what. I'd assume so. But at the clinic that I went to, my consultation, which was one time, I paid once even though I went back. I paid about $17 US for the consultation. And she is a specialist. So I know that there's a very, very big difference in cost of living and salary here, but that still is quite cheap. When I went in the US, even though it was just like a Med Express type thing, it was still about $130. So very big difference in price. For my medications in total, and I had to buy 3, I believe I also spent about $20. And then for my lab results, only 2 of them weren't covered, and the 2 together was also about $25. So it added up. It did add up, but in the US this would be way more expensive. Relatively cheap. That's pretty much it. So the experience was not as painful as I thought it would be, but it is really annoying because you do have to just go and wait, and that can be very frustrating because everything here does take longer, which is a cultural thing, so it's to be expected. But when you don't feel good, you don't always want to sit and wait for forever. So that is part 1 of my experience being sick with strep throat. Again, I don't have COVID. I'm doing way better, so we're good. But I was pretty sick last week. So it's not too bad. It was good care. The doctor is really nice and very accommodating. So make sure that you like and subscribe and stick around for part 2, where I'm going to compare and contrast the major differences that I've noticed between medical care here and medical care in the US. So I will see you next time.